I kind of love when people ask me what I do because I think they're completely not expecting the answer that I give them whatsoever.
It still surprises a lot of people when you say that. Like when you actually say, I'm an environmental scientist, they go, exactly what you just said. Oh, wow. It's like kind of a shock. But just jumping on your point, it's never a shock when a man says anything that they do.
Hi, welcome to our International Day of Women and Girls in Science Roundtable discussion. I am the Digital Content Manager for the Department of Water Resources, and we are here chatting with these amazing women in the field of science. Michelle, at what moment did you realize you wanted to be a scientist?
I think like many people and many women, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a marine biologist. I felt like that's kind of where we all started, right? So that was when I was younger, and I ended up going to UC Davis, and I wanted to go into water law. I've always cared about water, just obsessed with it. When I see it, it's just been a big part of my life. And it wasn't until after I graduated, fortunately, I majored in something that I was able to either go into science, policy, or law. After I graduated, I went into what I call like my quarter life crisis. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and school wasn't as easy as it had always been before. And after a couple of years after college, I had a friend of mine who I went to school with was like, hey, what are you doing? And I was doing policy work in the Bay Area, and I really, really disliked it. He was like, hey, you know how to drive boats. Like, you like to be outside. You should be a scientist. And he introduced me to the department and then helped me get my first job as a scientific aide. And from that moment on, I was like, oh, I want to be a scientist. Like, this is actually what I really like to do. So, yeah.
Bree, at what moment did you realize you wanted to be a scientist?
I don't want to say it took me a while, but it kind of did. I vividly remember I was a senior in high school at the time, and they offered an AP environmental science class, and this was during the time frame where I had no idea what I wanted to do after school. So I was like, I don't know where I want to go. I don't know what I want to major in, but I know I need to figure out some sort of direction at that point. And at the time, not knowing what I wanted to do, my goal was just to get as high of a GPA as I can, which meant taking as many AP classes they offered. And one just so happened to be the environmental science class that I surprisingly really enjoyed. I was kind of just using it as something to boost my GPA and ended up really liking the class itself. So when it came time for college applications to come around, I kind of just took that as my first shot of this is a class that I really, really liked. And I'm going to move forward with that as my degree. After graduating, I worked at the Children's Science Museum. So I stuck in the science realm for the sake of I know this is where I want to pursue, but I knew I didn't want to keep living in Chico. So eventually I applied for the scientific aid position at Bright Chemical Laboratory. I really liked the routine of the way the lab worked. So I feel like it finally really clicked for me now that I say I was an environmental science major, and then also now my career title is an environmental scientist. It feels, I guess, very full circle because I just was not really expecting myself to ever be in a position where it would ever feel like that. So it's kind of how it went for me.
I see a pattern.
I know.
Student aides, scientific aides. I also was. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
At what moment did you realize you wanted to be a scientist?
Like everyone else, it kind of took me a while to figure out what I wanted to do. I had no idea when I was a kid what I wanted to do. I always liked science and did well in science. And then when it was time to graduate high school, I had no idea. I knew I was going to college, but didn't know what I wanted to major in. So physical therapy was my first major. And I didn't really, I ended up just taking general ed classes in junior college. And then when I finished my AA, just in general education, researching majors at Sacramento State, I found the environmental studies major. And I thought, oh, this is amazing. It's, a lot of biology. It's a very interdisciplinary major, like a lot of yours, where you could go into policy, you could go into science. So part of that major, there was a field course that I had to take where we actually went out into streams and did stream flow measurements, and we collected invertebrates from the sediment using different methods. And we went out on boats and collected water samples and learned to use different instrumentation. And that class, I was like, wow, this is what I want to do. I want to be outside. I want to work with water. This is just amazing. So when I graduated, I was looking at state jobs and found Department of Water Resources, and I found a job that was doing exactly what I had done in that field class. My first job was doing environmental monitoring in the Delta, where we collected benthic invertebrate samples and water samples and took different measurements. So it was just amazing. I think a lot of people graduate from college and don't get to do what they think they're going to do, or something unrelated to their major. And I just feel very fortunate that I was able to do what I wanted to do, I guess. I don't know if I'm saying that eloquently.
Yeah, no, you are. No, you are. I think that's such a good point, because there's a difference between just a job and a career, and you found a career.
Yes.
It's kind of a calling.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You just feel that pull, and you just have to you have no choice.
Yeah.
You have to go that direction.
And the only way I think
matter what.
to figure that out sometimes is just by doing different things. And you don't always know what you want to do until you actually do it.
Yeah, it's a calling, right?
Yeah.
Something that pulls you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, somebody told me I hung up my handlets or my loop and my rock hammer and my Brunton compass for policy and politics, and I was like, oh, it really hurt, But when I came here, I did. He wasn't wrong, but it's also a different calling. You find this is really important, and so yeah, sometimes even in the course of your careers, and I'm looking at the end of my career, right? I'm kind of closer to retirement than starting, and it's the way that life takes you, your pathway. It's
the way it
pretty
unfolds.
cool. Yeah.
Michelle, tell me who inspired you, or who inspires you?
Who inspires me now? There's two people that come to mind. I absolutely have the most wonderful supervisor on the planet. He's just an amazing human being. And he's so supportive and has been such a great leader and directed me towards what I'm really good at, and encourages me all the time. And then on the theme of women scientists, our lead scientist at DWR is a woman, Louise Conrad. And I was fortunate enough to, when I was a scientific aide, I did a study with her, and we spent long hours in the field and doing really, really dirty, messy work. It was an aquatic vegetation study, and we'd have to physically pull out the vegetation from the water, and it was really labor intensive. So I got to spend a lot of time with her, and I feel very fortunate about that. And then seeing her become the lead scientist, how cool is that?
I agree to that completely. And also at DICE, another thing I have to mention, that coming from other agency, the thing that I like the most is that we have a lot of women at DICE. And this is so wonderful. So nobody felt, I know that I did have my third kid, at DICE, and it didn't feel anything awkward or something, not natural or something. But everybody was so supportive, and I agree that we have amazing leaders at DICE and DWR who are women, and I also look up to them. When they talk, I go wow, how do they know the right thing to say all the time? Yeah, so that's really inspiring.
It is impressive, actually.
Yes,
I've watched Carla so many times.
Yes,
never uses notes. I don't know. I watched her speak for 40 minutes, and she never looked at her notes. And I just, I don't know how.
And then she's so natural.
Yeah.
She
charisma.
never even.
For
charisma.
sure.
And
there are a lot of role models at DWR.
Absolutely,
there really is.
absolutely. And then also Cindy Messer, she came from Sci 8.
Yeah.
She started as scientific aid. So this is a great inspiration for, I
And the
think, all of
work-life
us.
balance too is really important. You get that
Absolutely.
across the board
Yes.
here. I didn't necessarily feel that at the other state agencies I worked at.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to come here and really see that balance.
I think, yeah, like I think as a woman, like as a mother and a family, like I think that could be also an inspiration for us, because we do hear a lot of good things about state for for their very support of the work-life balance. And I did have 3 supervisors so far in my current position, and all of them have been so amazingly wonderful. I never, felt like I had to compromise. And this is a very important thing to be a woman, because you do like to give best at every role in your life, in professional life and personal life, right? But then it just helps so much if you have that support. And I think DWR, and at least at DICE, we could say, is really great there. They value a lot the work-life balance.
Brianne, what was the most challenging moment in your career and how did you overcome it?
When I was a brand new environmental scientist with the department, and quagga mussels were discovered in Lake Mead, and it was a statewide emergency. They set up an incident command, and my supervisor said, "You get to be the new quagga mussel expert." So,
No pressure.
and then you get to go around the state and train people on how to look for them. So I just did the best I could with taking in as much knowledge from the expert, she's actually now my current supervisor. Just learning as much as I could from her. And I'm lucky that our department was supportive in allowing us to travel. Like, we went to Lake Mead and looked at actual quagga mussels. And I tried to look at it as an opportunity and to learn as much as I could. I am the expert. I don't know. Just, I don't know how to explain myself. Yeah. And actually it did turn into an opportunity, because I work with quagga and zebra mussels now. Having that experience that I gained in the trial by fire in the beginning of my career led to my promotion.
You were thrown into it, and sometimes it's like, even though you've been through all this schooling and all this, you've worked so long, you've worked so hard, sometimes you have that imposter syndrome.
Yes.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yes,
I forgot
I
it.
don't feel that a lot, actually.
Yeah. Definitely, the imposter syndrome has come up, especially not having experience in the science world, and you're like, oh, I am a scientist, okay?
Yeah.
But
yes.
I wonder if that's is it more like a woman thing, like the imposter thing? Like being now there's more women in STEM? I don't know, but definitely can relate to the imposter syndrome.
It's like all these women have imposter syndrome, so maybe the more women that are in the field of science, it's like these little girls will grow up thinking, that's all around me. That's what I know. I can do this. There's no imposter syndrome, and you just go for it. There's no thought behind it. You just do it because there's all these women around you.
See, I didn't used to have imposter syndrome. I wasn't raised like that. I was raised by very strong, capable women. Not all educated, but they were very capable women. And I just had that confidence until my experiences. Sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I don't believe, those thoughts stick with you. And so I think not just being, seeing others in the field, but I think for us, as our responsibility is to make sure that those that come along behind us, like Breeze is starting out, we need to do whatever we can to instill confidence in her. And I think that that's where I feel like me as a mentor, that she's exactly the person I would want to mentor, because I don't want people to go and start second guessing themselves. And because that does more damage, and getting thrown into things, sometimes that causes that self-doubt to kind of, slip in there. But so I think it's like twofold. It's not just seeing the women in those fields that you're interested in, but then also us as women in that field have a responsibility to make sure that, you know, those that are working with us are fully supported and don't allow those doubts to get in there, because that does way more harm than good. So
Michelle, kind of going back to the question, tell me, why do you think it's important to be a woman in the field of science?
It might sound cliche, but I'm going to say it anyways. It's important to be a woman in the field of science just to show that women can do absolutely anything. And I think it's important to show like the diversity within science. You can be an environmental scientist like me and be the main boat operator all the time and train people and tow big trucks and do all of these physical things. And it's just important to show little girls and women and aspiring scientists that you can do absolutely anything. There isn't just this structure for what a woman's job should look like anymore. And it may seem like we keep repeating that theme, but it's still like prevalent today. Like, it's still important to keep showing women that you can do absolutely anything, like absolutely anything. So, yeah.
Bree, tell me why you think it's important to be a woman in the field of science.
I feel like I have kind of two answers. I wouldn't say one's necessarily funny, but I also I love the question of like, if you were at a party and someone asked you what you did. I kind of love when people ask me what I do, because I think they're completely not expecting the answer that I give them whatsoever. And I think it's also like a personality to career conflict. You meet somebody and you would not expect like that individual to be the person that shows up for that role. So sometimes I almost even like laugh when I get asked that question, because I always get the like, like really like response, you know? So it's kind of like, I kind of actually love that at the same time, which like makes me feel, I guess, cool to be a woman in science. So I guess like there is the cool factor of, I guess, like being like the woman in science that they know or whatever. I even have friends who refer to me as their woman friend in science, like their girlfriend in science or whatever. So it's kind of funny to play that role in your dynamic of your life. But also on a more serious note, I think I don't know, I think it's important to show the representation, the like diversity of who can be what. I don't think there's ever, you know, certain roles that can play whatever job. I don't know if this is like bad to say, but I feel like when you ask, I guess maybe I could be incorrect, but sometimes if you were to ask a man maybe what their job is, you're not usually taken back by any position that they decide to tell you, you know, but maybe for a position like this, you're more taken back to hear it from me or from a woman, you know? So I think there's that perspective, and I just think how we were saying, like, it is important to show other women that it is doable. Like, everybody is capable of doing hard things. Everybody is capable of achieving things. We are all intelligent individuals and should be represented as such. So
definitely, to jump on that, why it's still important to be a woman in science is it still surprises a lot of people when you say that. Like, when you actually say, I'm an environmental scientist, they go, exactly what you just said. Oh, wow. It's like kind of a shock. But just jumping on your point, it's never a shock when a man says anything that they do. So yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
Kelly, if you could go back and talk to the 10-year-old version of yourself, what would you tell her?
Stay the course, sweetie. Honestly, just stay the course. And, you know, things are going to get hard, but they'll get better. And, you know, I always feel like there's hope, and you shouldn't ever give up on that, and dream big, because it's worth it.
Michelle, if you could go back and talk to the 10-year-old version of yourself, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that life isn't going to unfold in a straight direction, that there's going to be many times where you get knocked back 5 steps and you walk forward 2 or sideways 3, and that's okay completely, to take your time finding who you want to be, finding what you want to do. And I would tell myself just to do something that makes you happy. My dad always used to say, and he still does, don't take a job for money. Take a job because you love it. Take a job because it means something to you. And environmental science means a lot to me. So yeah, just tell myself that life doesn't turn out exactly the way you think it will, but it turns out pretty good.
Farida, if you could go back and talk to the 10-year-old version of yourself, what would you tell her?
I think I would tell her not to be scared and not to listen to thousands of voices that's telling you or trying to define you what you should be doing just based on what others have been doing or they think you should be doing. So just keep on your, positive thinking and don't pay attention to all the negative talk and just be pure on your intention, because that's what I have always believed in, that if your intention is right, good things will happen. And it did, and it does.
Bree, if you could go back and talk to the 10-year-old version of yourself, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that life is not all about sports. That sounds so random, but when I was 10 years old, I was made to believe I'm gonna be playing softball as my career, or soccer. They're always let's make it big playing sports. But I was also at the same time that more on the nerdy side kid that was maybe a little different or whatever. So, and then growing up, I look back at old photos. They're kind of funny to laugh at, just looking at them and whatnot. But it was well, I just was myself, and I grew up. So just accepting how we were saying that maybe it's not the way you thought it was going to be. For so long, I was oh, I'm going to go to college and play sports. I thought that was going to be more you pick your career around whatever fits a sports schedule, but who would have thought I actually quit sports because it's not what I wanted to do, and I actually was really happy with what I decided for my career. It didn't seem like that was really something that was in my playing cards for the future. So I don't know, just as long as, how we're saying, you stay true to the person who you were without feeling I guess it's easier said than done, but without feeling external pressures from others to change certain factors about yourself, it's going to play out the way that it's supposed to regardless. So.
Brianne, if you could go back and talk to the 10-year-old version of yourself, what would you tell her?
I would tell her, don't give up. Your life isn't going to happen the way you're necessarily envisioning it, but everything's going to work out, and you're going to end up having a career that's rewarding and fulfilling, and you're going to have a family. Yeah, I guess that's about it. But it just may not happen on the exact timeline that you're envisioning right now.
Well, I need to thank you all for being such inspirations and for taking your journey in the field of science and making it attainable for all the young women that are going to see this. And I hope to really inspire them. So thank you so much for participating in this roundtable discussion for the International Day of Women and Girls in Science.
Thank you for the
Thank
opportunity.
you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.